Listening to Charles's account of the letter of attorney and the revelation that Christine Powell was now carrying Jake Darfield's baby, Tom couldn't help the smile that spread across his face. Oh, he was quite happy for Jake. He had managed to bag 2 heiresses, making a convenient combination that would be quite beneficial for the Hawthornes. Like Andrew, Charles, Aidan, Anton, and the rest of the men, Jake not only had shares in the Hawthorne conglomerate, but he was also a loyal man who owed his life to the Hawthornes. Tom was never the type to easily put his trust in people. It wasn't that he had surrounded himself with untrustworthy individuals. Rather, it was a personal inclination, or perhaps a flaw. It took him years to trust Bella with his heart and dignity. And she was the one woman he knew he would lay down his life for at a moment's notice. That says a lot about his character. But Jake knew what he meant to Nathaniel. Jake Darfield wasn't just a bodyguard. He was a friend. And Jake knew the lengths Nathaniel had gone to protect his interests over the years they'd known each other. So, Tom was willing to bet that Jake would not betray Nathaniel Hawthorne. Whatever Gray was planning with Powell was about to go south. They didn't just have the company policy as a shield, they had Jake Darfield. So will you discuss this with the boss? Charles was saying. Tom met and held his gaze. You are a good friend, Charles, he said, giving him a friendly pat on the chest. He's gone through so much, Mr. Hill. He deserves a break, was Charles's reply. Tom smiled at the note of emotion in the big guy's voice. Charles, I'm pretty sure Nate already has this in the works. He has the power to have the captain withdraw the charges against the Davies, and knowing what's going on now with Julia, trust me, it's already in play. Even without this letter, he would have ensured Jake gets the properties for his child, Tom reassured. Nonetheless, I will make sure to discuss it with him. Charles nodded in understanding. Thank you, Mr. Hill, he replied. It's not like he even needs the money, Tom quipped. Charles shrugged with a thoughtful smile. I can't even recall the last time I looked at the account balance for my shares as earnings, he muttered almost to himself. Exactly, Tom replied, patting him on the chest as he headed to the back porch. I suppose we are celebrating today, he added over his shoulder. Today is surely a good day. It is almost as if I had planned all of this, he added, chuckling. Charles furrowed his brows, wondering what he had missed. Mr. Hill, what are you plotting now? He asked, with a hint of concern. Tom Hill laughed in response. We have 2 weddings to plan, Charles, he replied vaguely. But as he was about a few feet from the back door, he paused, thinking he might as well ensure that everything fell into place for everyone, especially Nathaniel, Dr. Hawthorne, and Jake Darfield. Making a U-turn, he retraced his steps back to the foyer, walking past Charles on his way to the living room. Charles let out a resigned sigh and followed him. In the living room, Jake pulled back from Christine, framing her face with his large hands, waiting with bated breath for her reply. Come on, Christine, say something, Jake urged. Christine let out a shaky breath. I don't want you to marry me just because of the baby. I promise I will understand if you choose to wait until you are sure, she said in a low voice, barely above a whisper, trembling slightly with emotion. I have a confession to make, Jake said, flashing her a smile as her eyes grew curious and gleamed with interest. Jake gently stroked her face. When you asked me to fake marry you, I was planning to counter that by asking you to marry me for real, he said. Christine's eyes widened in surprise. I thought you were holding back because of your ex, she replied in a low, bewildered tone. Yes, I was, but not for the reasons you might have imagined. I made a promise and I needed to be sure I kept it. But I was planning to sort that out and ask you to marry me for real. I wasn't going to do that 1-year trial thing with you. I knew it wouldn't be easy for me to walk away from you when it was over, he said. Christine's face crumbled as she fought back fresh tears. Are you saying you love me, Jake Darfield? She asked, her voice filled with incredulity. Her eyes gleamed with hesitant hope, darting around as she met his gaze. I love how you make me feel when I'm with you. In my head, I can picture you as my wife, the mother of my children. I can see you as the woman I come home to, the woman by my side for the rest of my life. You are beautiful, smart, funny, witty, and honest. I only hope you can learn to love me enough to love my child as your own and make a happy home with me, Jake replied, emphasizing the word happy. What are you saying? Don't you know, Jake? "Don't you know how much I love you?" she said in an emotional whisper. Jake's heart soared at her confession, and he pressed a kiss on her lips, holding her tightly in his loving embrace. "Marry me," he rasped against her lips. "Yes," she whispered back. Jake let out a laugh, lifting her up in a joyous whoop. Thank you," he repeated. Putting her feet back on the floor, he cupped her face, reveling in the loving smile etched on her lovely face. "Are we still going ahead with the shotgun wedding, or can we plan it for real now?" he rasped, his eyes dimmed in a smile. "I'm not sure. It was his condition for my inheritance," she replied in a shy tone. "I'm certain he already knows I'm pregnant. He's been rather nice to me this week and hinted at wanting a grandson. He didn't even mention me needing a husband like he usually does," she quipped, but Jake could see through the facade and silently noted her sadness. "Well, what do you think he meant when he asked you to get married?" Tom Hill said as he strode into the room, having caught the last part of the conversation. Jake and Christine turned to face him. Jake watched as Charles came in after Mr. Hill. "I hear congratulations are in order, Jake," Tom said, moving toward Jake and extending his hand for a handshake. "Thank you, Mr. Hill," Jake responded, as he gingerly accepted the handshake, unconsciously glancing at Charles for backup. Charles shrugged, looking equally bemused. Jake reverted his gaze to Mr. Hill. Although Jake knew that Tom Hill kind of liked him, he didn't think the old man would deliberately seek him out to congratulate him if something wasn't up. He watched him keenly, trying to decipher the older man's intentions, as Tom took Christine's hand, smiling at her like a shark eyeing its prey. Christine chuckled awkwardly at Tom Hill's remark. Shrugging, she replied, "I figured that's what every parent tells their daughters on the verge of spinsterhood." "Come now, how old are you? 25 at most? I'm certain you've summed up exactly what your grandfather wanted, but I can see you haven't yet accepted that he was hoping for an heir replacement," Tom Hill said. The smile on Christine's face vanished. Jake made a protective move toward her, wrapping his arm around the small of her back. "Mr. Hill, I'm sure there's no need to be so blunt," Jake said with a forced smile. "Nonsense. I'm sure Christine, being the granddaughter of Powell, must have heard far harsher words of reality. Now, Miss Powell," Tom began. "Please call me Christine," Christine quickly interjected, sounding deflated. Now, there's no need to be down. Today is a happy day, and we will keep it that way," Tom Hill said, placing a finger under Christine's chin to lift her face. She smiled tiredly at him. Jake exchanged a glance with Charles, who shrugged again. "Like you said, your grandfather must have caught wind of your pregnancy, and I'm certain you haven't mentioned Jake Darfield yet," Tom probed. "No, I haven't," Christine said, darting an apologetic glance at Jake. "You see, Mr. Hill, I wasn't sure that Jake would want to fake marry me, and I wanted to be certain before I brought it up," she explained. Tom Hill's smile grew. "Good. Now must you go back to New Jersey today, Miss Powell?" he asked. "Not really. Why?" she replied. "I was thinking we could have that wedding you wanted tomorrow morning," Tom Hill suggested. Jake narrowed his gaze, now certain something was up. "Tomorrow morning? I thought we would need a license to do that," Christine said, and Tom chuckled. "Oh, you poor summer child. You have Nathaniel Hawthorne as a friend, and you think you need to wait for anything in New York?" Christine glanced at Jake, who was now arching his eyebrows at Tom Hill. "What do you say, Jake?" she asked hesitantly. "I say I would very much like to speak with Mr. Hill. Perhaps he could make me understand why we still have to rush our wedding," Jake said in a light tone, though the gleam in his eyes suggested otherwise. "Well, I thought Miss Powell's condition of inheritance was time-bound, and now that she is pregnant, wouldn't it make sense to give her a soft landing, especially in front of her very traditional grandfather?" Tom Hill said in a honeyed tone. Jake held back the urge to roll his eyes at Mr. Hill's machinations, but it was clear Christine was buying into the theatrics. She looked worried and had started to bite her nails. Wonderful, Jake thought, throwing Tom Hill a glare. His headache grew and he shut his eyes, trying to subdue it. "Can we continue this conversation later? I need to take Jake back to Dr. Sterling," Charles interjected, trying to protect both Jake and Christine from Mr. Hill's persistence. "Of course, go ahead and take him. All I need is for him to get some rest and be ready to marry the lovely Miss Powell tomorrow morning," Tom Hill replied. "But Jake tried to interject, not wanting to refuse outright, knowing it might make Christine think he was reconsidering. "I'd really like a word, Mr. Hill," Jake said in a firm tone. Unfortunately, Christine picked up on his hesitation. "Why? What's wrong, Jake?" "Don't you want us to go through with it?" Christine asked, her eyes searching his. "Of course I do, baby. I want us to get married," Jake reassured her. "Great, it's settled then. Charles, take him away. I need to speak with Dr. Hawthorne immediately so we can get our lovely bride ready while I make a few calls," Tom said, steering Christine away. Jake looked dazed. "What just happened?" he muttered. "I think we need to bring Andrew in. He's the only one who can really understand Mr. Hill's way of thinking," Charles joked. "Oh, and I gave him the letter," Charles added. "What letter?" Jake asked, feeling like the headache was intensifying now. He squinted in his attempt to rein in the pain. "You know which letter. I think it's best if I take you back. You're looking a bit out of it now," Charles said as he guided Jake out of the living room. Jake reached up to his temple, feeling slightly dizzy from the pain. Everything was happening so fast that he hadn't had time to think about it. He was going to be a father of 2 babies in such a short time frame. He felt both ecstatic and scared to death. "I'm going to be a father, Charles," he said aloud, his voice filled with awe. Charles chuckled. "You poor bastard," he quipped. Jake let out a shaky breath, overwhelmed with emotion as Charles gave him a friendly pat on the chest. "I'm so happy for you, man," Charles added. "I have never been so scared in all of my life," Jake admitted. "Before you drown yourself in it, remember there are about 200 Hawthorne guards on your side. We've got Nathaniel Hawthorne, Dr. Hawthorne, and that scary old man, Tom Hill," Charles joked. "Please don't make me laugh," Jake pleaded, wincing. Charles chuckled again. "And we've got Miss Jonas, Miss Anita." "Shall I go on?" he asked. "I get it," Jake said with a sigh. "I'm covered, surrounded by family," he murmured almost to himself. "Damn straight," Charles affirmed. Meanwhile, back at the Hawthorne residence, Tom Hill escorted Christine to the back porch. Nathaniel, Aria, Liam, Owen, Alex, Ethan, Anna, Anita, Miss Everly, Dawn, and Miss Bella were all seated around the lounge chairs with the kitchen staff serving finger foods. The air was filled with laughter and light-hearted conversation. As Tom stepped out with Christine, Aria and Nathaniel both stood up, concern etched on Aria's face as she wondered where Jake was and why Christine was with Tom. "I have an announcement," Tom declared. "The lovely Miss Powell will be marrying our very own Jake Darfield tomorrow morning." "What?" Aria whispered in shock. "Ah, for heaven's sake, what have you done now, Tom?" Nathaniel muttered under his breath. "I can answer that, boss," Andrew said, stepping up behind Nathaniel. "He's setting up our leverage, and I believe Miss Powell is now a chess piece on the board," Andrew explained. Liam narrowed his gaze at Christine Powell, trying to remember where he'd seen her before. "Oh, that's Uncle Jake's girlfriend from the party, remember? The one he danced with despite the fact that he was dying," Liam whispered to Owen. "Liam, you do know what dying means, right?" Owen replied, raising an eyebrow. Liam scowled at him. He was wounded and everyone was worried about him. "Remember, he wouldn't even show us the wound. And you know why? Because it was gruesome. That's why. Yet he managed to dance with that woman," Liam replied. Owen shrugged. "Maybe he just wanted to impress her." "I suppose that's why she's marrying him," Owen added. Dawn, who was listening in, fought down a laugh, trying not to alert the kids that she could hear them. Anna and Anita heard them too, causing them to glance in their direction. Liam and Owen sat on their heels on the couch, facing backwards, and watching Tom Hill and Christine on the porch. If she made him dance when he was obviously sick, it makes you wonder what else she could make him do once he marries her. "I have a bad feeling about this whole marriage thing," Liam grumbled. "Do you think Uncle Jake might leave if she marries him?" Owen asked, frowning thoughtfully. Liam gasped. He hadn't thought of that possibility. What if indeed? And if she could make him dance when he was sick, she could easily make him leave his home just to take him away from his family. "I feel like we need to stop this," Liam said, scowling. Anita cleared her throat, trying to mask a laugh. When the two looked in her direction, she quickly took a sip of her drink. Tom escorted Christine down the porch steps to meet Nathaniel and Aria. Nathaniel locked eyes with Tom, trying to signal that they needed to talk privately. Before they could do so, Tom's phone rang, and he excused himself, quickly heading towards the back porch. Nathaniel gritted his teeth, a bit concerned about what Tom might be scheming. While Christine might not matter much to Tom, Nathaniel didn't want her to realize she was being used as a pawn. He certainly didn't want to make Jake's relationship with Christine even more unstable, especially with the added complication of Jake expecting a child with another woman. Right beside him, Aria pulled Christine into a hug, and when she drew back, Aria met her gaze, giving her a warm smile as she said, "Congratulations, Christine. Welcome to the family." The other woman nodded in gratitude, tears forming like huge drops in her eyes. "Or," Anna said as she and Anita stepped forward to draw Christine into a hug. "Congratulations, Miss Powell," Dawn, Miss Everly, and Miss Bella chorused. Christine gave them a grateful smile, nodding in gratitude. Ethan and Alex came to stand beside Nathaniel, and Alex saw Ethan's eyes gleaming with mischief. "For once, do not say anything stupid," Alex said. Nathaniel coughed to hide a laugh, drawing Christine's attention in their direction. "Congratulations, Powell. I'm happy for you. Jake is a good man," he said. "That means a lot, thank you, Nate," Christine replied. She then automatically turned her gaze to Ethan and Alex. "Congratulations, Christine," Alex said simply. Congrat, Ethan managed to say as if he were choking on the word. Christine narrowed her eyes at him, and Nathaniel turned away, laughing. "Apparently I'm supposed to be nice. As if I'm a terrible person," Ethan said, making comical gestures that made everyone laugh, including Christine. "Never change, Ethan," Christine said, chuckling despite herself. Ethan grinned with a devilish relish. "Please don't encourage him," Aria quipped. Liam couldn't quite understand why everyone was so accepting of this Christine lady. Didn't they know she would ruin Uncle Jake's life? "Hey there, Owen, Liam," Christine greeted. "Please don't be weird," Owen said to Liam under his breath as Christine approached. "I am not going to pretend if that's what you mean by weird," Liam replied. Unaware of what she was walking into, Christine approached the twins and bent down, extending her hand for a handshake with a smile. Neither of them accepted her handshake, leaving her hand hanging awkwardly in the air. Slowly, she lowered it. "Hi, I don't know if you remember me. I'm Aunt Christine, Uncle Jake's friend." Christine introduced herself as Anita came to stand on one side of her while Aria stood on the other. Aria wasn't entirely sure, but she could somewhat sense hostility from Liam. Her brows furrowed in concern. "Oh, I know who you are, all right, Miss Powell," Liam replied. Owen let out a sigh, face-palming. Christine's face creased with a bemused frown. "Excuse me, I have somewhere to be," Liam added, and managed to get off the porch, heading toward the house. Aria started to call out to him, but Dawn reached for her hand, drawing her attention. The younger woman shook her head, silently telling Aria not to intervene, then flashed a smile. Aria's curiosity was piqued. "I'm sorry about my brother. He tends to be passionate about his beliefs," Owen said. He then folded his small arms against his chest and added, "But he has brought up some very interesting concerns. Like, please, Miss Powell, what exactly are your intentions towards our Uncle Jake?" Aria's eyes widened at the remark. Anna covered her mouth with her hands in an attempt not to laugh out loud, and Anita grinned. Aria watched as Dawn went to sit beside Owen on the couch and chimed in. "Yes, Miss Powell, we would all like to know." Aria was quite impressed that Christine didn't burst out laughing at Owen's stern gaze, which reminded her so much of Nathaniel's. That, combined with Dawn mimicking Owen's seriousness, was enough to send anyone into laughter. "What's going on over there?" Nathaniel asked, as he caught sight of the ladies lining up in front of Owen. "Where's Liam?" He added, flicking his gaze to the back entrance of the house, catching his son's small frame as he entered. His brows furrowed. "I'm going to go get Liam," Andrew said and left. "It looks like Christine is getting grilled by Owen. This I must hear," Ethan said with glee, and hurried away. Nathaniel and Alex also moved closer. "We're getting married," Christine was saying. "Yeah, well, that doesn't mean much. We think you're making him do things that aren't in his best interest, and we need to make sure your intentions are genuine." "Why are you marrying him all of a sudden?" Owen pressed, narrowing his eyes. Nathaniel grinned, clearly impressed. "Yes, Miss Powell, please tell us why," Dawn chimed in. Aria turned away, chuckling. Christine met Nathaniel's gaze and silently mouthed, "Help me." Ethan stepped forward, blocking Nathaniel's view with a grin. "You are the worst," Christine mouthed to Ethan, making his grin widen. She sighed and turned her attention back to Owen and Dawn. I really care about your Uncle Jake, and just like you, I want to be a part of his life, to take care of him as much as you and your brother do, to love him, and hopefully add something positive to his daily life to make him even happier, Christine said. Arya smiled at her, then looked at Owen and Dawn. The two exchanged a glance before Owen asked, Where are you going to live? Christine frowned slightly and answered, Your Uncle Jake once told me I'd have to live in his apartment with him if I wanted to marry him, but now that we're expecting a baby, I'm not sure if he still wants that. You're pregnant? Already? Miss? Seriously? Owen exclaimed, his horrified expression making everyone laugh. I couldn't have put it better myself, buddy, Ethan added, sitting down beside Owen. Nathaniel stepped forward and picked Owen up, the young boy giving Christine a look of disbelief. I'm not the only one at fault here, Christine said with a sheepish smile. Your uncle played a part in this too, she added, awkwardly tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Nathaniel couldn't help but chuckle, thinking Christine was probably a little flustered about getting a lecture on responsibility from a 5-year-old. Arya watched Owen shake his head, as if to say, I can't even deal with this. She chuckled, amused by how disappointed he seemed. Let's give Aunt Christine a break. It's been quite a day and she needs to be ready for tomorrow, Nathaniel said. Oh my goodness, Arya exclaimed, grabbing Christine by the hand. She motioned to Anna, Anita, and Dawn, guiding them to a corner. All right. How do we make tomorrow happen? She asked. Meanwhile, Liam wandered into the kitchen, climbed onto a tall stool at the island table, and sat down with a scowl resting his elbows on the marble surface. Is there something you need, Master Liam? Miss Jonas asked, her tone amused. I'd like a cup of milk if it's not too much trouble, Mom, he replied. Of course, Master Liam, Miss Jonas said with a smile. Do you know where Uncle Jake is? Liam asked. I believe he's at the concierge medical unit, Miss Jonas responded. I sent his food with Mr. Aidan, Mr. Anton, and Mr. Jordan a few hours ago. Liam's brows furrowed. Is he sick again? He inquired. I think they're just resting, Miss Jonas answered. Liam sensed that Miss Jonas wasn't sharing the full story. He figured that Uncle Jake was indeed ill, and Miss Powell was still insisting on the wedding the next day. Annoyed, he shook his head. Miss Jonas placed his milk and some cookies in front of him. Liam nodded in thanks and said, Thank you, Miss Jonas. Andrew, who had been following Liam, stepped into the kitchen and spotted him at the island table, drinking milk. Miss Jonas gave Andrew a warm smile, and he couldn't help but think Liam looked like a frustrated adult nursing a drink at a bar to ease his stress. Hey, buddy. How's it going, Miss Jonas? Andrew greeted as he sat down next to Liam. Everything's good, thank you. What can I get for you? The older woman asked with a smile. I'll have what my little friend here is having, Andrew joked, catching Liam's eye. Liam stifled a laugh and said, It's just milk, Uncle Andrew. Andrew grinned and shrugged. I like milk, he replied, making Liam chuckle. Ms. Jonas prepared a milkshake for Andrew and set it in front of him. Thanks, he said. Then turning to Liam, he asked, So what made you leave the back porch? I thought you were having a good time with everyone. Liam sighed. Uncle Andrew, can I ask you something? He began. Go ahead, Andrew encouraged. Do you think Uncle Jake is making the right choice by marrying Miss Powell? Because I don't, Liam said. Andrew smiled, glancing sideways at him as he took a sip of his milkshake. Why don't you start by telling me why you're doubtful about Miss Powell? Then I'll do my best to help sort things out. Sounds good? Andrew suggested. Meanwhile, Nathaniel, with Owen in his arms, entered the house in search of Tom, while also keeping an eye out for Liam. He wanted to understand why Liam had walked away from Christine earlier, and felt it was important to address the need for more politeness while getting the full story. He's just worried about Uncle Jake, Daddy, Owen defended. Still, he should have been more polite, Nathaniel replied. Speaking of worries, do you want to tell me about those boys back at the Kensington Academy for Early Excellence? He asked, taking advantage of their time alone to discuss the issue. Owen sighed and began explaining, recounting how some boys had sneaked in to take some papers and sharing his thoughts on what those papers might have been. So you think the Hatcher boys stole the test questions to cheat and get chosen to represent the school in the Tokyo contest? Nathaniel asked. Yes, Daddy. And even though they threatened us, we're not going to let them think they've scared us away, Owen said with determination. Nathaniel felt a surge of pride, understanding why his sons had insisted on choosing the school right away. But just because they challenge you doesn't mean you have to pick a school you don't like just to prove a point, Nathaniel said. Oh, we do like the school, Dad. Miss Fisher and Mr. Bradford were really nice, and they challenged us academically. We enjoyed that, Owen explained. Nathaniel nodded. All right then, I'll trust your judgment, but if at any point you feel the school isn't meeting your needs, please come to me right away. And you're right about those boys. They can't intimidate you. I'm proud of you, son, and your brother too, Nathaniel said. Owen smiled brightly. Thanks, Dad, he replied. Nathaniel heard Tom's voice coming from the foyer and followed the sound, ending up in the study with Owen. How much do you think he's managed to gather so far? Tom was saying on the phone. Whatever answer he received made him grin mischievously. That's impressive, but the share prices just went up, Tom said. Nathaniel guessed the person on the other end had asked how much, as Tom continued. We've tripled the initial sale price, and right now we're looking for a significant buyer. I have a meeting with one tomorrow evening. Of course, Paul, spread the word, he added, laughing as he hung up. When Tom noticed Nathaniel standing at the door with Owen, his grin widened. Nathaniel sighed. Do I even want to know? He asked wryly. Tom chuckled and motioned for Nathaniel to come in. Grandpa Hill, what are you doing here by yourself? Did you get tired of the party too? Owen asked. Tom left the desk area and approached Nathaniel and Owen. No, son, I just had a quick errand to run. Do you think you could give your dad and me a few minutes to talk? I promise we'll be quick and join the party afterward, Tom said. Understanding why Tom didn't want Owen present, Nathaniel called out to Lewis, and shortly after, the guard came to get Owen. I'll be with you shortly, son, I promise, Nathaniel said, pressing a kiss on Owen's forehead. Okay, Daddy, Owen replied. All right, buddy, where do you want to go? Lewis asked as he picked Owen up. Let's go find Liam, Owen replied. Oh, that's easy. I think I saw him with Uncle Andrew in the kitchen, Lewis said. Nathaniel walked into the study, closing the door behind him. He sat on a side couch, elbows resting on his knees, and focused on Tom. You were right to be concerned about the Department of Health's sudden interest in Evergreen Memorial Hospital. It turns out our dear Mr. Gray has been looking to stir up trouble for his own benefit. They weren't just after the Davies' 20%, which they planned to obtain by blackmailing Dr. Hawthorne as we suspected. Gray has a close friend on the medical board who will lead the investigation. They've been working on this for a while, trying to find something they could use. An intern at Evergreen Memorial accidentally provided them with what they needed. I guess Gray decided he needed a bigger ally and approached Powell. Powell's condition for getting involved was to include Evergreen Memorial as part of the deal. One of their strategies is to exploit Dr. Hawthorne's reputation for being overly ambitious and bold. From what I've heard, they have 2 former patients who were saved by Dr. Hawthorne's controversial methods, but are being misled into testifying against her without knowing the implications. Fortunately, you caught on in time. I have Dr. Yen and 2 of our men working to set the record straight, Tom explained. That idiot, Nathaniel muttered angrily. Regarding the OPMC's visit and the upcoming investigation, they're looking for evidence which they expect to find, since Dr. Hawthorne didn't think there was any need to hide it. It's right there in their organ bank, Tom continued. Organ bank? Nathaniel echoed, his voice nearly a growl. Henri left behind 1 heart, and the legal team documented a surgery performed at Evergreen Memorial Hospital involving an organ sourced from a criminal, Tom clarified. Damn it! Nathaniel cursed silently. Outwardly, he tried to stay calm. Tell me there's a solution to this, he said. Do you think we could ask Dr. Hawthorne to lie and say it never happened? Tom asked, raising an eyebrow, already knowing the answer. We both know she wouldn't do that, Nathaniel replied. I thought as much, Tom agreed. And since it's on record, there's no point in trying. So, Dr. Hawthorne will have to face the medical board to defend herself if she wants to keep her license. Nathaniel rubbed his hands over his face in frustration. Tom continued. The board's concern is that the organ might have been illegally obtained, but Dr. Hawthorne did everything by the book. She documented the sources given, immediately informed the legal team, and flagged the organ for further verification. She was as transparent as possible. Nathaniel nodded, his brows furrowing with interest. So the focus is on proving that the organ was used under false pretenses and that she followed all necessary procedures, he asked, a hint of hope in his voice. Exactly, Tom replied. We can present all the paperwork to show she acted in good faith, believing the certification was legitimate. The second heart is still in evidence storage, untouched, and Dr. Hawthorne reported it immediately. We also have statements from the hospital's legal team that they advised her based on the documentation provided. Nathaniel exhaled slowly. So we need to ensure the board understands that she acted in good faith and that her actions were aimed at saving a life under urgent circumstances. Tom nodded. We'll also have character witnesses testify to her integrity and past conduct. The key is to show that if there was any deception, she was a victim, not a perpetrator. Nathaniel nodded, but hesitated. But remember, she's delicate at this stage of her pregnancy. Putting her through this, I don't know, Tom, give me another option, he said, hoping for a different solution. Nathaniel was unsettled by the thought of Aria having to fight to keep her license. It brought back memories of the situation with Agatha McCarthy and Alan Gregory at Harvard. Aria had been angry with him and held a grudge, feeling that incident could have jeopardized her career. Now they were facing another somewhat similar situation. Although Aria might be the one to have initiated helping Julia Davies, Nathaniel felt responsible for involving her with the Davies and the Comoras. Despite a voice in his head suggesting he might be overreacting, he still resented that Aria was being targeted because of him. I heard Powell wants the hospital because, after learning about the case Gray was building against Dr. Hawthorne, he realized he could leverage that situation to force her to operate on him. Tom said. Operate on him? Nathaniel repeated. Yes. It seems the old bastard isn't ready to give up just yet. He's looking for heart, liver, and kidney transplants due to multiple organ failure caused by a mix of amyloidosis and chronic diabetes, which have severely damaged his organs. I suppose he figured that if Dr. Hawthorne could obtain organs of questionable legality, she might be able to help him, Tom explained. Nathaniel muttered as he got up and started pacing. I have a feeling you're thinking the same thing I am, Tom said with a knowing smile. Earlier I heard you mention the sale price. I assume you want Gray to think I'm looking for an investor and planning to sell my wife's shares to mislead him, Nathaniel asked. I'm going to make it look like I'm selling the shares to Jake Darfield and in reality transfer some of them to the unborn babies, Tom said, still smiling. Jake Darfield, Powell's future son-in-law, Nathaniel remarked with a sigh, realizing that everything was falling into place and understanding why Tom wanted Christine to marry Jake quickly. Exactly. And then Christine and Dr. Hawthorne would visit Powell to make him an offer. He can have his transplant done by Dr. Hawthorne if he withdraws his support from Gray. Otherwise, no matter what he tries, Dr. Hawthorne won't perform the surgery, Tom continued. I also have a plan to use the company's policy violations to reclaim Gray's shares and let Andrew and Jake take them over. But for that, I'll need your approval because it would mean completely taking down Gray. And you know, I've been ready for that for a long time, Tom finished. Does Jake have the money to afford that many shares? Nathaniel asked, intrigued. If we sell off Julia Davis's properties and add them to his savings, then yes, he can afford it, Tom replied confidently. Nathaniel immediately understood Tom's point. With Julia having Jake's baby, the properties they had intended to return to Giselle would need to be transferred to her child, and it made sense for Jake to be the custodian. It was somewhat ironic, as it meant they would be introducing another member of the Davis family into the Farmer Hawthorne board. However, this time, the custodian would be an ally. I suppose it's starting to look like Gray is a pet python, just waiting to strike. I need to neutralize his venom before it catches me off guard. Let's hit him hard and fast, leaving him no time to recover or scheme. We'll prepare Aria just in case, but I want Gray notified immediately of his violation and the revocation of his shares. To make this legitimate and prevent any objections, we should inform the board members about the shares' availability and the auction dinner. Let's handle this properly and position our people to bid competitively. I want Gray to know I'm not a coward who backstabs, Nathaniel declared. Tom grinned, thinking, there he is, the Nathaniel Hawthorne no one dares to mess with. Out loud, he said, that's a solid plan. I'm going to enjoy every minute of it. Tom then pulled out a letter and showed it to Nathaniel. It was the power of attorney from Giselle. Nathaniel nodded and handed it back to Tom. Process this and let the captain know it's time. However, we need to address a loophole. We had planned to introduce an adult female, supposedly John's long-lost love child, but now we have an infant whose father is Jake Darfield, claiming the Davies properties. You do understand that Sean Cavalier might catch wind of this, right? With Jake involved, it wouldn't take much for Sean to become suspicious and potentially launch an investigation. We need to plan this very carefully or the whole scheme could unravel, leaving the poor child caught in a dangerous situation. Sean is unhinged but was deeply in love with Julia. He won't rest until he uncovers the truth. So, again, how do we keep a tight lid on this plan? Nathaniel asked. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Liam was expressing his concerns about Miss Powell to Andrew, who listened with a smile. So you're worried that Miss Powell might be taking advantage of Uncle Jake? Andrew asked, though he sensed that Liam was more jealous than worried. He seemed upset that someone else was taking up so much of his Uncle Jake's attention, fearing it might mean losing him. Yes, just look at you, Uncle Andrew. You're marrying Aunt Anita, but you're still going to be around, right? Liam questioned, fixing Andrew with a sharp look. Andrew hesitated before responding. Yes, Liam, Aunt Anita and I will be spending a lot of time here at the estate. Even if we decide to move to a bigger house to start a family, we'll only be a couple of miles away. You can visit us anytime. How does that sound? Liam thought for a moment, his brows furrowed. How many miles away, exactly, he asked. Andrew chuckled. It'll be walking distance, I promise. Since your Aunt Anita works with your mom, we wouldn't want to be too far from her job. Or mine, he assured. Liam nodded approvingly. But meanwhile, we'll be going back and forth between here and your mum's old apartment on Madison Avenue, Andrew added. Liam's smile widened. I like the apartment, Uncle Andrew. It's beautiful, he said. Exactly. So wouldn't it be nice if Uncle Jake had a similar setup with Aunt Christine? That way you could visit him whenever he's not here, Andrew suggested. That doesn't sound too bad. It means Owen and I would have more homes to visit. But Uncle Andrew, we need to make sure Uncle Jake actually wants to be with Miss Christine and that she's not pressuring him into anything, Liam insisted. I completely agree. But for now, Dr. Sterling has given him some injections to help him sleep. Once he wakes up, we can sneak him away for a little chat. Deal? Andrew proposed. Liam beamed and nodded. Deal, he said enthusiastically. Andrew raised his milkshake, and Liam lifted his glass of milk, and they clinked them together in agreement. Miss Jonas chuckled and shook her head in amusement. I'm almost jealous of your Uncle Jake, she teased. He's got such a fierce protector, she added. Liam took a sip of his milk, leaving a bit on his upper lip, and grinned. Miss Jonas laughed and playfully tapped the tip of his nose. Just then, Andrew's phone rang, and he quickly answered when he saw it was from the security post at the estate's main entrance. Hello, is everything okay there? Andrew asked. I'm not exactly sure, came the bewildered response. What do you mean? Andrew said, his entire body suddenly tensing as he pushed back from the table and got up, ruffling Liam's hair affectionately as he walked away. On his way out, he met Lewis and Owen. Uncle Andrew, Owen greeted. Andrew flashed him a smile and held up a finger, indicating for him to give him a minute. He then gestured to Lewis to keep an eye on the twins as he continued down the hallway leading to the foyer. There's, a blogger here with a man claiming we have his daughter locked up on the estate, the security guard was saying. Excuse me? Andrew replied, bewildered. Exactly. I'm as lost as you sound. I think he's crazy, the guard replied. Well, send them away or call the cops, Andrew retorted. Yeah, that's the thing. There are cops here and the blogger is filming us live, the man replied. Andrew let out a string of expletives. Andrew hurried out, moving swiftly down the foyer and signaling to the nearest guard to follow him. He couldn't be sure, but he had a strong suspicion that the person causing the commotion was none other than Noria's father, the contemptible Mr. Cooper. Andrew was baffled as to how the loathsome man had managed to connect the Hawthornes to Noria, formerly known as Charlotte Cooper, but he didn't like the idea of him making a scene at the entrance of their estate. "Andrew," Anita called out, stopping him just as he was about to get behind the wheel of his Jeep. He turned to see Anita standing with Dr. Hawthorne, Miss Anna Morris, Noria, Miss Dawn, and Miss Christine Powell. Closing the car door, he hurried over to them. "Where are you going in such a rush?" Dr. Hawthorne asked, her brow furrowed. "There's some sort of situation at the estate gate," Andrew replied, his eyes drifting to Noria, who responded with a curious look. "What kind of situation?" Anita asked, sounding worried. Andrew hesitated for a moment, debating whether to tell them the truth. Maybe they could handle the situation more effectively and peacefully. He remembered that Miss Morris seemed to have a knack for dealing with Gen Z. Considering the circumstances, he thought it was best to inform Noria so she could be prepared. As he glanced at each of the women, he wondered why he shouldn't tell them everything. They were all closely tied to the Hawthornes. The only exception was Miss Christine Powell, but since she was going to marry Jake, Andrew figured they had no choice but to trust her. "I believe Noria's father, Mr. Cooper, is at the gate with a popular young blogger claiming that we've kidnapped his daughter," Andrew said, watching the women closely to gauge their reactions. Noria went pale and instinctively drew back. Dr. Hawthorne's previously calm expression shifted into a scowl. Anita's eyes widened in shock, while both Dawn and Miss Christine Powell looked confused. Anna Morris scowled, then clicked her tongue in irritation and took out her phone. I have to go," Noria stammered, clearly panicking. She started to turn away, evidently planning to make a run for it, but Anita and Dr. Hawthorne quickly caught her before she could flee. "Oh, no, you don't," Dr. Hawthorne said firmly. "You're over 18 and an adult. You're not obligated to go anywhere with him, and he doesn't have any authority over you anymore," she affirmed. "I know you're scared, Noria, but take a deep breath and remember where you are and under whose protection," Anita said with determination. "What's going on?" Christine Powell asked, exchanging a glance with Dawn. "An abusive father situation," Anna replied quietly, her face set with determination as she continued typing on her phone. "Oh dear," Dawn muttered in dismay. Christine Powell's confused expression shifted into a scowl as well. A notification pinged from Andrew's phone. He opened it to find a video showing what was happening at the gate. The crowd gathered at the gate was at least 50 people strong, with several holding placards bearing slogans like "Justice for the Coopers" and a hashtag. They were chanting, "Set her free!" and were led by a young girl who couldn't have been older than 18, holding a megaphone. The Hawthorne guards, wearing masks, were forming a human barrier just outside the black wrought iron gate. Noria's father stood next to the young leader, looking quite dejected. He seemed to have aged a lot since the last time Andrew saw him at the Agatha McCarthy resort. He wore tattered clothes and looked like a homeless man. He also seemed to have lost a considerable amount of weight and appeared sickly. Andrew wondered whether this was all part of an act or if the man truly looked this way now. "Ah, found her," Anna Morris exclaimed, drawing everyone's attention. "I know who the blogger is. She calls herself the Truth Seeker 22. She's a young activist who prides herself on standing up for the voiceless. She has a page on MeTube and is currently live streaming the event at the gate, but I know exactly how to throw her off. She clearly doesn't know who Mr. Cooper really is, and we need to make sure she does." "Oh, is she going to be royally pissed?" According to what's being said here, Mr. Cooper claims his daughter, Charlotte Cooper, was lured to this estate with the promise of a job and he hasn't seen her since. Anna read aloud from the post. "Okay, how do I get this Truth Seeker 22 lady to leave without anyone getting hurt?" Andrew asked, his voice tinged with urgency. "We could feed them," Dawn suggested. "Feed them?" Andrew echoed, looking puzzled. "Yep. That's what I did when some locals back home decided to protest outside my store, accusing me of giving the townsfolk diabetes with my bakery. I fed them and kept up the good deed of feeding the homeless. Ironically, the live stream of the protest brought me more customers. Eventually, my accusers got bored and left," Dawn explained with a smile. Andrew frowned, about to argue that he didn't see how this could work in their situation when Anna cut in. It could definitely throw them off. They're expecting aggression and a show of force, not hospitality. While they're disarmed by the gesture, we could gather a few people to give video testimony about Mr. Cooper's character. We might also need a hacker who can hijack the live stream and play those testimonies," Anna added, a mischievous spark in her eyes. "We've got a hacker, but how do we get the testimonies?" Andrew asked, thinking that whatever Dr. Sterling had given Anton, Aidan, Jordan, and Jake to put them to sleep could hopefully be reversed quickly. Anton was one of the most skilled hackers Andrew had ever encountered. He often tricked people into underestimating him, but he excelled at anything he set his mind to. Anton was a serious threat to federal agencies, which was partly why he had been recruited. I think I might be able to call a couple of people who might be willing to help," Noria said hesitantly. "I'm just not sure if they'd be willing to put themselves at risk," she added, sounding uncertain. "Oh, I can handle that." "I think I might be able to offer them something," Arya said. Noria nodded, her eyes welling up with tears. "Don't worry, Noria, we've got your back," Arya reassured her. "I'm ordering pizza," Christine Powell announced. "I have an open tab at a very exclusive pizzeria nearby," she added with a grin. "How many do you think we need?" She directed the question at Andrew. Andrew showed her the video. "That's quite a party," she quipped. "Ordering in batches then." "And done. That should hold them for a couple of minutes," she chuckled. "Oh, look at us, we're like the Avengers," Anna remarked, prompting everyone to chuckle. "Let's move this inside. Noria shouldn't be out in the open. We need to arrange for witnesses and also keep track of Christine's wedding dress delivery," Arya said. "I'll let Miss Jonas know about the wedding brunch tomorrow," Anita offered. "I should join you." "As a baker, I'm sure there's some way I can help," Dawn suggested with a smile. "Thank you all so much. I truly appreciate your help," Christine said, her voice filled with gratitude. "You all have my gratitude too," Noria said in a small voice. Arya drew her closer for a side hug, shaking his head and smiling at Miss Anna Morris's persistent cheerfulness. Andrew said, "I'm going to try and wake our hacker." His voice was low, and he couldn't be sure the ladies heard him, but he turned and left. In the kitchen, Liam, sitting with Owen and their Uncle Lewis, looked up when Aunt Anita and Aunt Dawn walked in. "Ah, so this is where you disappeared to," Dawn said, beaming with a smile. "Hi, Aunt Dawn," Liam replied. When Anita got close, she drew Liam and then Owen into a hug, giving them playful kisses on their foreheads. "Aunt Anita, stop," Owen protested half-heartedly. Liam simply giggled. "Come now, don't tell me you've grown too big for your favorite aunt's hugs and kisses," Anita quipped. Owen's brows furrowed. He wasn't sure if his Aunt Anita should so openly declare herself their favorite aunt with Aunt Dawn around. He threw an apologetic glance in Aunt Dawn's direction and said, "We've known her the longest." Dawn chuckled and tapped him on the tip of his nose. "You are unbelievably kind and sweet. Thank you," she replied. Owen let out a sigh of relief and arched an eyebrow at Anita, making her laugh. After a few minutes of light banter, Liam glanced toward the door. When his Uncle Andrew still hadn't returned, he asked, "Aunt Anita, do you happen to know where Uncle Andrew is?" Anita nodded. "I think he's gone to the medical unit," she replied. "Okay, thank you, Aunt Anita," Liam said, then took a sidelong glance at Owen, who sighed longingly at the plate of cookies Miss Jonas had just served. Liam climbed down from his seat and pulled Owen along. They were almost at the door when Lewis noticed them. He cursed mentally and hurried after them, catching them before they reached the foyer's back door. "Glad you're joining us, Uncle Lewis, but I'm driving," Liam quipped. "Ha-ha, very funny," Lewis remarked, reaching out to playfully smack him on the back of his head. Liam giggled. "I take it we're still on the mission to expose Miss Powell?" Owen inquired, addressing Liam. "Uh-huh," Liam affirmed. "Then we're going to need my laptop." "I'll be right back," Owen said and ran towards the foyer elevator, almost colliding with his dad. "Hi, Dad," Owen called out as he ran past him. "What the—" "No running in the house, Owen," his dad automatically said. "Yes, Daddy," Owen replied. He slowed down until he saw his dad enter the living room, then picked up the pace. Soon after, Owen returned with a backpack strapped to his back. A few minutes later, the car transporting them came to a stop in front of the concierge medical unit. Lewis and the twins got out of the Jeep and headed inside. At the entrance, they saw Uncle Andrew and Charles standing there, discussing the need for a hacker. 10 minutes before, Andrew arrived at the medical unit. As he entered, Dr. Sterling, who was checking Jake's vitals, immediately said, "No!" Andrew chuckled as Charles joined him. "You haven't even asked what I need," he said. "You need to let him rest," Dr. Sterling replied with displeasure. "Who?" Andrew asked. "Jake Darfield," she said. "Oh, no, see? I'm not even here for Jake. I'm here for Anton, the clown in the corner," he said, pointing to Anton's bed. Let me check," Dr. Sterling said, moving from Jake's bedside to Anton's. After checking his IV drip and glancing at her wristwatch, she said, "I'll need about 3 hours before we can wake him." Andrew started to object, but realized he couldn't clearly explain that he needed a hacker. "Damn it," he cursed mentally. Dr. Sterling returned to Jake's bed to continue her work. Charles leaned in and whispered to Andrew, "What do we need Anton for?" Andrew saw that Dr. Sterling was too close and might overhear. He gestured for Charles to follow him. When they reached the entrance of the concierge medical unit, Andrew stopped, turned to Charles with his back to the entrance, and said, "We need a hacker." He explained the situation. By the end of his explanation, Charles's eyes were filled with anger. Apparently that old idiot Cooper hadn't heeded their warning to stay away, he thought. Out loud he said, "He's lucky Aiden and Jake are knocked out." "Ah!" Andrew rubbed his face in frustration, knowing they needed to act fast and get rid of the crowd forming at the estate gate. "It's a good thing, too, because we need to resolve this situation as peacefully as possible," he said. Upon hearing their uncles, Liam and Owen exchanged a glance in silent communication, and Owen nodded in approval. "Maybe we can help." Liam's voice came from behind Andrew, making him turn to see Owen and Liam standing there. Andrew then glared at Lewis. "Really?" he said in silent admonishment. Lewis shrugged. "They were looking for you," he replied. "What do you think you can help with, Liam?" Charles asked, amused. "Oh, not me, him," Liam said, pointing to Owen. "Owen can help you access any site you need," Liam said. Charles's smile faded. Andrew looked as though he might have a heart attack. "You're joking, right?" he asked, his voice a mix of disbelief and hope. "Tell me what you need and I'll see what I can do," Owen replied confidently. No, not so fast," Liam said, stepping in front of Owen. Charles realized that the twins were growing up quickly. They used to barely reach his hip, and now they were almost at it. It was clear they would take after their father in both height and, judging by this, audacity. "If you want Owen to do any hacking for you, you'll need to meet certain conditions," Liam said. Lewis coughed to stifle a laugh, earning a sharp look from Andrew. But Andrew had dealt with Liam often enough to know where this was headed. He bent down to the twins' level and said, "Before we start discussing demands, how about you prove yourselves first?" he challenged. Liam's eyes narrowed, and Andrew struggled to contain his laughter. He thought if the twins could pull this off, he'd be mighty proud, but also very, very concerned. Nathaniel walked into his living room and spotted Noria sitting on a single-seater chair with a phone mounted on a selfie stick positioned in front of her. Aria, Anna, Dawn, Christine, and Anita were gathered behind the phone, appearing to cheer her on in some way. Nathaniel furrowed his brow, trying to make sense of what was going on and wondering if he had missed something important. He decided to slip out of the room quietly, assuming no one had seen him, and planned to ask Andrew later about what was happening with the pirate girl. But Aria, as if sensing his presence, glanced in his direction in time to see him heading out. Her brow furrowed as well, and she quickly excused herself to follow him. "Baby?" she called as she reached the doorway of the living room, causing him to stop and turn to face her, a smile spreading across his lips. "Thought I slipped out unnoticed," he said with a soft, deep voice. Aria leaned against the doorframe, crossing her arms over her chest, and smiled. "Not a chance. I can feel you a mile away." Nathaniel's heart swelled with feelings at her words. He moved closer to her, not stopping until their bodies were almost touching. Placing his left hand on the doorframe above her head, he leaned in, his face hovering close, in a way that felt almost predatory. "Is that so?" he murmured. "Uh-huh," Aria replied, raising her hand to gently cup his jaw. She watched his eyes darken as expected, her heartbeat quickened. He was a strikingly handsome and virile man, and the knowledge that he was hers alone sent a rush of heat through her body. "Be careful, dear wife. Whether we're in the foyer or not, "I won't be denied what's mine," he growled softly. Arya felt his voice reverberate through her, making her shiver. Her gaze fell to his lips and she swallowed lightly. "You know I'm yours, right, baby?" Nathaniel whispered. Arya closed the gap between their faces, capturing his lips with hers, nibbling gently and tracing them with her tongue. Nathaniel's whole body vibrated with desire for her as he reached for her jaw, taking control of the kiss with a passionate intensity that left them both breathless. "You're asking for trouble now," he warned playfully, stroking her bottom lip with his thumb. Arya giggled and pulled back slightly, gazing lovingly into his eyes. The deep grey of his eyes was dark and intense now, gleaming as if she was the center of his world. "Let's sort out this Cooper situation first, and then I'm all yours," Arya whispered, stretching up and standing on her toes to gently bite his lower lip, sending a shiver through him. Nathaniel pressed his forehead against hers, closing his eyes, and managed to ask, "What Cooper situation?" His voice was deep and almost primal. Arya slowly leaned back, her eyes searching his. "You don't know?" she asked, her brows knitting together in confusion. "Know what, baby?" he replied, holding her gaze. Arya sighed and explained the commotion at the estate gate and their plan to handle it. As she spoke, Nathaniel's expression grew increasingly dark, not from desire but from mounting anger. He was furious with both Cooper and Andrew. He had specifically instructed Andrew to prevent such incidents, yet here they were, dealing with this chaos. Sensing his anger, Arya placed her hand on his chest, giving him a soothing look, and quickly said, "We'll handle it, my love. Just please let us take care of it," she pleaded. Nathaniel didn't like any of it. This was how the whole situation with Julia had started. Arya wanting to honor her oath as a medical professional, and then Jake getting emotionally attached. Then they got dragged deeper until they were entangled in a volatile mess. And now, another potential disaster was brewing under his roof, and she was asking him to trust them to resolve it again. "Nathan, please, but we can't just throw her out. The man is vile," she said with urgency. Nathaniel noted that even though he hadn't said a word, she could tell he was upset. She moved closer, looking lovingly into his eyes, fluttering her eyelashes, and added, "She's our employee now, baby," she whispered. "You already know I don't like this," Nathaniel replied, his voice calm despite his displeasure. "I promise, if we can't resolve the issue by the end of today, I'll find another job for her and have Andrew help her move." "Deal," she said, still giving him that pleading look. For some reason, Nathaniel recalled a time when she would have sooner kicked him than plead for anything, and his heart constricted with emotion at the thought. He had a feeling she was trying to manipulate him, but he couldn't bring himself to care. He doubted he had the heart to refuse her, but he wasn't about to let her know that. "Deal, then," Nathaniel said, his tone neutral. When he started to pull away from Arya, she pouted, wanting a kiss. He fought back a smile. She looked so beautiful and endearing that he instantly forgot his frustration. He leaned down and gave her a quick peck on the lips. However, when he drew back, he noticed the anxious look she gave him, the vulnerable stare pulling at his heartstrings. He let out a soft sigh and kissed her properly. When he finally released her, her eyes remained closed, and she nestled into his arms. He wrapped his arms around her and kissed her hair, smiling to himself as he enjoyed seeing this tender side of her. "I love you," she whispered against his chest. "I love you more," he replied in a low voice, his smile widening at her contented sigh. When she finally let him go, Nathaniel put his hands in his pockets and watched as she returned to join the other women in the room. Leaning his shoulder against the doorframe, he watched as Noria tried to convince someone on a video call to testify about her father's treatment of her. "That's our last hope." The first two women were too scared to agree, Anna whispered to Arya. Nathaniel could hear the woman on the call apologizing, saying she couldn't give video testimony and explaining that she was in a vulnerable situation that would make it easy for Noria's father to retaliate against her. However, the woman referred to Noria as Charlie, which Nathaniel thought was an unusual name for a girl child. The thought of a girl child made Nathaniel glance at Arya, and for a moment he imagined her being pregnant again and giving him a little girl. He pictured how spoiled the child would be with 4 older brothers and a doting father. A smile tugged at the corners of his lips. Then he blinked as Arya moved to sit beside Noria. Nathaniel's brows furrowed as he listened to her introduce herself and proceeded to intervene. I'm just an acquaintance of Miss Charlotte Cooper, but I felt compelled by her story to do something to help. What if we blurred your face? Do you think you could take that risk? Arya suggested. Before the woman could respond, Arya quickly added, I couldn't help overhearing your financial situation. And if you wouldn't mind, my friends and I could offer some assistance, just like we're trying to help Charlotte. Nathaniel grinned with pride, thinking Arya had found a very subtle way of offering aid to gently push the woman into helping Noria. I don't know how bad your situation is, but I suppose we could raise. Arya mentioned a substantial amount of money, and Nathaniel heard the woman on the other end of the video call ask hesitantly, You say my face will be blurred? Anna gave Arya a thumbs up, and Anita, Dawn, and Christine smiled at her from behind the phone stand. I promise you, we will protect you, Arya reassured her. All right then, tell me what to do, the woman replied. Nathaniel watched as Noria lowered her face, tears falling from her eyes. And that got to him. His anger flared. He turned away, fists clenched, marching across the foyer, his Italian leather shoes echoing on the marble flooring. Passing a guard, he asked, Where's Andrew? The guard straightened and quickly replied, In the northern wing of the estate, boss. Nathaniel murmured and headed out to the back porch where Alex and Ethan were with Miss Bella and Miss Everly. When he stepped outside, he saw Tom had rejoined them. He beckoned for Alex and Ethan to join him. Want to go for a long walk? He asked as the two approached. No, Ethan quickly replied with an incredulous tone, making Nathaniel and Alex chuckle. Fine, we'll take the cart, Nathaniel conceded. Meanwhile, at the concierge medical unit, in the back of Andrew's car, they had set up laptops and gadgets to test Owen's hacking skills. Liam had requested for 3 slices of his mum's pie, 2 slices of Miss Jonas's famous chocolate cake, a box of pizza with his choice of toppings, and non-alcoholic wine, all of which Andrew had arranged for him and Owen. When Liam added, and a Cuban cigar as a starter, Andrew had given him a stern look and said, No. The little rascal grinned and replied, You can't blame a kid for trying. Charles coughed into his sleeve to hide a laugh, while Lewis was certain that if he held back his laughter a moment longer, he would explode. It was quite comical watching Liam negotiate with Andrew, especially since Liam wasn't even the one doing the hacking. Okay, what's the test site? Owen inquired in a calm, controlled tone. Before Andrew could reply, Lewis said, Try logging into the local police precinct's criminal records site. Andrew and Charles gaped at him. Are you serious right now? Andrew exclaimed. It's a test, gentlemen, Lewis responded. He definitely didn't expect Liam, a 5-year-old, to be able to do that. It would be insane, he thought. Meanwhile, the sound of Owen tapping away on the keyboard drew the older men's attention. Andrew, Charles, and Lewis watched in awe as Owen managed to bypass security protocols and log into the database. The screen showed he had successfully logged in. Are we looking for any particular record? Owen asked, his tone casual, as if this was an everyday task for him. Liam broke into a fit of giggles at the shock on his uncles' faces. He helped himself to a drink and a bite of his mum's delicious pie, then gave Owen a bite too. The two munched away, waiting for the adult's response. Before Andrew could say a word, his phone chimed with a message notification from Anna Morris, indicating that they had managed to obtain 4 video testimonies. Andrew's brows furrowed as he wondered how they had accomplished this so quickly. Recognizing that time was of the essence, he quickly showed Owen the video and instructed him to place the testimonies alongside the live stream of the commotion at the Hawthorne estate gate. Owen nodded, then asked, What's the site's name? Some blogger called Truthseeker22. The live stream is on MeTube. Andrew replied promptly, MeTube? Even I can do that. Why didn't you mention that from the start? Uncle Andrew, Liam said, continuing to munch away. Andrew considered playfully pressing the pie against Liam's smug little face. I'm in, Owen said, drawing Andrew's attention away from his mischievous thoughts. Andrew, Charles, and Lewis watched as Owen manipulated the live stream. Soon the video of the testimonies appeared in the top right corner of the scene unfolding at the estate gate. Done, Owen said casually, giving his uncle a sidelong glance. Andrew noticed Charles and Lewis both staring at Owen, the former with concern and the latter with his mouth hanging open. Andrew glanced at his watch and saw that the entire process had taken less than 10 minutes. I'll be damned, Lewis muttered. "Now let's discuss payment," Liam said, adjusting his position. Andrew turned his attention back to Liam and with a mischievous grin picked up the pie he had been eating and playfully pressed it to Liam's face. Owen gasped in surprise. Liam, initially caught off guard, scraped the pie remnants off his face and ate them. "Your price just went up," he said as Charles, Lewis and Owen burst into laughter. Nathaniel, who had just arrived with Alex and Ethan, stood a few meters away and asked, "What's going on?" His tone was tinged with incredulity. "Oh, shit," Andrew muttered under his breath, slowly turning around.